This week on the Hydrated Mindset podcast, we have Rob Weiss, legendary film producer, writer. You know him from shows like Entourage and Ballers. The guy's an absolute legend in Hollywood and in the film industry. On the show, we talk about his various shows and projects that he's worked on over the years, including Entourage and Ballers. We talk about working with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Was it good or bad? You'll have to tune in. We talk about failure, the process, starting projects, and I think this show is packed full of pieces of information that can help you no matter what you do, whether it's film, being an entrepreneur, being a better husband, etc. So tune in to this incredible episode with Rob Weiss.
Smash that like button.
The man, the myth, the legend, Rob Weiss. Bro, again, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. I know you're a busy man. I know you had some projects going on this morning, so we appreciate you being here, man. We appreciate you being here.
Well, you know, I'm a fan of your soft drinks, so anybody who can make your soft drinks, I'm happy to join.
Yeah. So, so you grew up in Brooklyn.
I was born in Brooklyn. I wouldn't say that I grew up there. I lived there till I was 8, but the memories are hazy, you know. So I really grew up in Long Island, and I grew up in 2 parts of Long Island. I grew up on all of it was in the South Shore, but I grew up in Baldwin, Long Island.
Oh, man.
Do you know Baldwin?
Working.
That's where Chris Weidman's from.
Oh.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think Aljo was maybe coaching wrestling in Baldwin. I don't know. I think that my brother represents Aljamain as his attorney, and both my brothers are close with him.
Oh, no way.
Okay. I heard in the conversation that he was a Baldwin cat also. And then I moved in high school. I had some issues in my high school, so I moved to a private school called Woodmere Academy. And a year later, my family moved to the Five Towns, which was just polarizing compared to Baldwin, because it's the first time I'd actually seen wealth.
Yeah.
Like, you would back of Lawrence and there's fucking castles. And I'm like,
you mentioned in that interview that once you saw these Porsches and Mercedes and shit, you were like, I'm in a new world. This is a different place.
Yeah, because it was like, you know, I actually credit that with me having greater ambition. Because, you know, if you don't know something exists, you don't know any other way, right? But I would see all this wealth, and I'd be like, shit, man, I want to get a little piece, you know? I'm still trying to get a little piece, but I really want a piece. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, who's your brother? Aljo's a good friend of mine, him and Weidman. I used to go out and train with those guys.
Mike and Andy Weiss. So they're in the entertainment business with me as well. Mike's a entertainment attorney / producer. Brother Andy's a writer. So they did the movie White Boy Rick and Middleman. You know, they're pretty tied in. They've done a lot of really cool stuff. I'm not exactly sure how they got tight with Aljo, but they are. So
yeah, it might be ACA. He might be with, is it ACA or who? I can't remember.
Aljo?
The talent agency.
Probably reps them outside of the He doesn't rep them, I don't believe, for UFC deals. I think it's more for entertainment and ancillary stuff.
I love it. Those guys are good dudes.
Yeah. Who, Aljo and the crew?
Yeah, man, I love all the Long Island guys. I used to love going out there for Miller went out there with me once. I fought out there, and I used to go train out there for like a month at a time and live out there with Aljo. And
who's your boy from Long Island that's just a train wreck?
John Vellante.
John Vellante. You know him, Rob?
No, I don't know John Vellante. But you know who else is fucking homeboy's the legend, man, from the UFC.
Matt Serra.
Right? So we were out at I think we went to like Warwick, which is kind of like this club lounge out here one night. And they had a big table, and it was like Dana White, Matt Serra, and the Diaz brothers. So I don't drink anymore. So it's got to be like 4 years ago. And I remember going up to the table, and I was pouring like a vodka. And Sarah's like, who the fuck are you? Hey, Long Island guy like me. And he just looks at me pouring his vodka, and he's like, who the fuck are you? Like you had this like crazy guy. And I was like, oh, I'm with them, man. I'm with Nick and, Nate. And he was like, yo, this guy's with you? And they were like, yeah, that's Rob Weiss. Cool. And he was just like, yeah, I mean, he was protective.
I love, man.
The table. bottles, man. It was hysterical. It was such a Long Island moment, you know?
Yeah, Matt Serra is like one of my favorite people. That dude is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, and he's always on.
He's a fucking legend, you know? These are the guys who built the sport, man, you know? And
you're a fan of the sport, right? You roll and train and
yeah, I mean, not at expert level, but yeah, I've been rolling for, I want to say 4 or 5 years with Higa Machado and his academy. You know, I think I'm one of the longest running blue belts in history. You know, I'm like, I think if I stick it out another 10 years, I can hit purple. And before that, I'd been doing like boxing for a decade plus at Wild Card, Fortunes, every gym city. And now I'm back to doing more striking with a little more Muay Thai with Arnold Chan, who's a buddy of mine. And, you know, he was like Tyron's guy.
Wasn't he in a couple movies?
Yeah, he's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, Arnold's the man. So I first met Arnold. He had actually done kind of like a stunt sequence in Entourage when Vincent Chase did that kind of Red Bull campaign. Arnold's like in the background doing crazy martial arts.
It was a commercial for $500,000 for the Red Bull of China. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So Arnold was in that, and then we become closer over the years. We have a lot of mutual friends, but I mean, to me, he's one of the greatest dudes I ever met. Just a solid cat, but he's also an incredible martial artist. You know?
Yeah, he's a good coach. I follow all of his stuff too. He's real well known. He's at Jake Laser's gym, right?
Right. So that's where I'll go. I'll go to Unbreakable, and obviously Unbreakable, we have a relationship with. We shot a lot of ballers there. Jay was on the show. So I'll pop in there a couple days a week and work out with Arnold, but mostly his conditioning, you know, like strap me up with resistance bands, you know. And I mean, I'm not young, man. I'm 55 years old, so I feel all this shit, you know. I love, you know, I'm gonna try to keep at it till I'm like 70, 75.
Yeah.
Till I get that purple belt on.
When you're 90, yeah. Still flexing on Graham. So you grew up in Brooklyn. You said something in another interview where you said there was a tough side to Brooklyn that kind of parlayed into some of your writing. Can you talk about that? Do you remember Brooklyn being
Baldwin?
Yeah.
I mean, Brooklyn is tough. When I was in Brooklyn, like the goal was to get out of Brooklyn, right? I mean,
now everyone's trying to get back in it.
Yeah, now everybody's just trying to get back to Brooklyn. You know, I mean, that's just gentrification, and you know. And I don't know what's happened on Long Island because I haven't been back there in so long. But Baldwin had a tough side for sure. Like I said, it was pretty working class. You know, you had probably middle to upper middle class in the harbor, you know, but like there was no real wealth. So it was tough, man. You know, it was a different day, man. I was joking about it with the Equinox locker room because actor Tay Diggs because we're from the same generation. And it was like our skin was just so much thicker growing up because there was so much day-to-day hostility with kids, you know, just calling each other crazy shit, punching each other in the face.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a lot of less shootings back then too because they let that go on.
No, but I feel like the pussification of America has sort of taken over. I mean, like even my generation growing up in Nevada was like always fighting, always ribbing each other, always talking shit. It's one of the reasons why I tell you all the time that I love training now with you guys because there's that locker room vibe of. So I train with Chris. You know, being around fighters all the time. You know, you get to be around that locker room where people don't let you fucking slip, right? Like,
yeah. It's a great camaraderie, man, and I think that you know there's a lot to be mined from just combat sports, martial arts in general, right? On the more philosophical, traditional side is the Bruce Lee of it all. You know, be like water. There's so much good emotional, you know, and emotional stuff and confidence building and philosophy and discipline. On the other side of it, the social side of it is you're right, man. There's just that kind of camaraderie where everybody talks shit, but yet there's still a brotherhood. A lot of egos. Like I personally found that in the boxing gyms, the egos were a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
Is that true? Yeah. Why?
Boxers don't really train as a team. They bring in guys to spar and beat the shit out of each other. Like a lot of them pay sparring partners. Like if you're a high end boxer, you pay guys to come in, so you don't care about them. They're not like your teammate.
Guys are pretty hardcore dicks in the boxing gyms. You know what I mean? By the way, I love them all, but at Wild Card, you'd be, what the fuck is going on here, right? And like some of the other spots, but with jiu-jitsu, and again, I'm pretty insulated at Hegan's place, and I have friends at other academies, and my buddy Scotty Epstein owns, I believe, a couple of the 10th Planets, and it invites me down a lot. And my son trains at Cobrino, which is an incredible academy. But I feel like in jiu-jitsu, it really does embody more of that surf culture, Zen, breathing, the flow state. And I feel like there's a different level of respect. Now, with that said, I'm sure there's a lot of dicks there too. I just personally, fortunately, haven't come across a lot of that. I feel like, you know, I don't have much of an ego about this stuff. I just want to stay in shape, stay young, and feel good, and you know what I mean, and you know, extract from it what I personally need, right? You know, I'm not looking to be a fucking killer at 55. I think it's the book, you know what I mean? But
you look like you could be. You don't look like you're 55.
Yeah, I was gonna say, bro, what's your skincare routine? I need to get on it.
Bro, I'm not joking. It's deep. It's fucking, you know what I mean? It starts with bubble baths, steam, a lot. Moisturizer.
So Rob, your first movie Amongst Friends was won some awards. I think at Sundance you got some critical acclaim. I love the story of how you built the film and because I think it relates to entrepreneurialism. I'd love for you to touch base on a couple things I got out of that story of you telling the story. Was number one is make a decision to do something and start doing it.
Right.
That providence will move, right? And I love the story of how you guys started bootstrapping it.
Right.
You got scared like, hey man, we only have 24 grand. I got all these people working for me. I don't know what we're going to do. Can you kind of tell the story of how you started this movie?
Sure.
And
well, you know, first off, desperation is the ultimate motivator, right? You know what I mean? Unfortunately, people in desperate situations will do some fucked up shit. But every once in a while, like desperation could actually inspire you to do something good, which is what happened to me. I was really young. I was 23. I think I was pretty aimless. I'd been like a club promoter. I fucking hated that. I was having like a mini early onset quarter life crisis, you know?
Yeah.
I went to school and I started studying film. I had like an issue in my film class. They bounced me out. It was a class at Parsons. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go make a short, you know? And I started writing the short, and it just kept going and going.
Hey, Rob, real quick, because one of the things, because that's an interesting jump. And you said something in that one of your interviews where you're like, we were sneaking into all these premieres, and you said there was a bunch of sneaky shit going on.
Right, so that's going simultaneously. Basically, once I got bit by like this idea to get into film, and it's really layered because my mom was a well-trained, well-studied actress. In fact, she teaches out in the desert. She teaches theater, but she was like a Long Island housewife, you know? She was raising 3 kids. So it was like she couldn't really get where she wanted to be. She would go and do background work on a lot of big movies. She's like in Goodfellas, but if you blink, you miss her, you know?
Yeah,
so like she had always been into it, but I was raised, my dad was a street cat. You know, he's a real hustler. And, you know, he always thought Hollywood was a pipe dream, right? So it was like, it was a tricky thing for me. But when I made the decision to start studying film and I really got bit by it, we went at every angle you could go at. So I'm in school prior to getting bounced out. Me and a couple friends are sneaking into every fucking premiere in New York. And I had this friend who's no longer a friend, but at the time he was a close friend. He was one of the craziest, shadiest, fucking nuttiest motherfuckers ever. He would call publicists pretending to be a publicist. And back then there's no internet. Like nobody could check shit. But calling publicists saying, hey, it's so-and-so from so-and-so's office, right? Like, and he'd drop a big director's name and he'd be like, the big director wants to come to the premiere tonight. He wants to bring his nephews. Can you put them on the list? And they'd be like, sure. But he'd be like, well, no. The director wants his tickets in hand. So at the time I was in Long Island, I would drive this dude to the city. He would dress up like a bike messenger. He'd grab the tickets.
Wow.
We'd suit up. And
pretty creative.
So I'd be at like Goodfellas premiere, State of Grace. I was at every premiere that happened in New York. But networking's never really been my thing, but I met a lot of really cool people, but it was never like, this is going to provide an opportunity for me. So after I got, unceremoniously booted out of the film department, I started writing the short. It just went on forever and ever. And I'm like, I have a feature. And me. So
what gave you the courage, Rob? What gave you the courage though in that moment to start a thing? Because as we've grown this company, we get lots of people who ask us this question, and they see where it's at now, and they think it's great.
It's that fear of time, and it snuck up on me at different periods of my life, right? Where you take stock in where you're at the moment you're at. For me, then it was all the guys I went to high school with had graduated college now, which I did not. And they were all starting lives in Manhattan, right? They're working at Goldman Sachs or wherever the fuck they were working. They were working these jobs. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm like 23. I don't even know what the fuck I'm going to do with myself. So I went from being this like incredible underachiever to making this little indie movie and then being a seismic overachiever. So,
right.
I got a plane going over. Apologies.
All good.
I got a question actually. Because how do you go from getting kicked out of film school to getting your short viewed or like in the right hands? Because
I didn't make the short. What wound up happening is I kept writing. And before I knew it, I had a feature-length script. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to do this? So I went out and did some fundraising. I think, we were able to raise like $20,000.
And was that just friends and family, Rob?
Yeah, mostly all friends and family, right? And then my dad was another complicated story, but my dad was like, I'm going to give you some money too. So I think all in, I started with $40,000 to make this movie. We thought we were going to have hundreds of thousands. So I had put together this entire crew of people, and I had to go, and the partner I had left the project. So I had to go downstairs and tell these guys, look, I only have 40 grand, the couple 100,000.
You mean to like your crew? Like you had to break the news to them, like guys.
Right, but I really, so there were only like a couple. I mean, everybody who helped on that movie was important, but the most important people on that were my cinematographer, Mike Bombalon, who really acted as my film school making that movie. And he had never even shot a movie at that point, but he just knew, and he's gone on to do amazing movies and TV shows. So he was a superstar in the making. And I had this really smart producer who'd never produced anything. He lied to me and told me he produced all these music videos, but he'd never produced anything. But he was a Yale kid, and he had like a really good head on his shoulder. And then there was this other producer who was like, I want to come be a PA. He was being a PA for us for free. And then I found out he went to Wharton School of Business. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm going to promote you. And you're going to help us. Us figure this whole fucking thing out. So basically, I had to go downstairs and tell the Yale producer and my cinematographer I didn't have the money. The Yale producer starts crying, like legitimately tears rolling down his face. And I'm like, because my dad was like, look, you don't have the money. Hold off. Hold the money. Raise the rest of the money. And I remember being downstairs, my cinematographer saying to me, Rob, if we don't shoot it right now, we're never going to shoot it. You're going to lose the crew. I had scored a lot of really great crew members because there was an IATSE strike in New York and they wanted to come and work. I'm sure, hopefully the IATSE people from 48 years ago are not listening to this pod. But they all came in and they like, all these people said they would work, so the big conversation was like, yo, let's just start shooting with the 40. And that's what we did. And the two producers, the Wharton guy and the Yale guy, went down to, it was whatever the New York film market was at the time. And they were handing out flyers for people to come watch dailies, which are, when you shoot for the day, you get your dailies back. They're rushes, right? They're just little bits of pieces.
Did you guys recognize at the time that was like a marketing ploy? Like, let's get some shots in the can. It's kind of like a business too. Let's get some product out.
We front loaded some really cool shit that we thought would sell the movie. Like, if anybody sees the movie, who watches this, it was like Vic and Eddie stuff. It was the stuff that was like just innately funny or cool without having to be so story driven, right? So couple great shots, couple great character things, and some funny stuff. And this producer's rep, John Pearson, who was pretty well known, I had read about him in like Premiere Magazine. He started Spike Lee, invested in She's Gotta Have It. He found prior to me, he found the Coen brothers.
Did you say the Coen brothers?
Yeah,
wow.
He did Blood Simple. He did Richard Linklater's first movie, Slacker. He had done like a lot of high profile indies, and he had raised, I think, $5 million through, I think it's David Brown, who was married to Helen Gurley Brown. They started like a $5 million film fund. He watched the dailies. He sat down with me and he was like, look, I think you're going to be a household name. How much money do you need to finish a movie? We were like $350,000, and he gave me the money to go and do it. He became a pain in the ass later, and we didn't get on. But he was a fucking lifesaver, and for that, he was a life generator, because without that, I don't have a life. And it's a trickle down. And I thought about this recently. Like, I don't make that movie. My brothers probably aren't in this business. My whole family's out west, like, and the next generation of my family all grew up out here. My brothers all have kids. I have a son, and that whole migration really was possible because of that one little, indie movie. Yeah. So yeah, he gave me the 350. We finished it in relative style, got it done, and then it was accepted into Sundance and competition. Back then, it's still the early years of Sundance. It's prior to all the commercialism of it, which I don't have a problem with, but it's just a fact. In fact, I went to do a panel when I was at Sundance, and it was like me, Bryan Singer, Robert Rodriguez. We're all starting out together. And I remember going into like the green room before the panel, and we each had a bag with our name on it with like a free Levi's jacket. And I was like, holy shit, somebody's giving us a free fucking... Yeah, mind blown. Then I went back there to shoot Entourage, and they had like Fred Siegel. They have Fred Siegel at the lift, and they just give you like you have to fucking ship home boxes of free shit. But I don't know if they still do that. But anyway, it was a great experience, and then that was my calling card, and I had an opportunity, and then the rest of it's like this. You come out, you're hot, you don't pull the trigger on shit, then you're cold, then Entourage comes along, you got heat again. I've learned to embrace the peaks and valleys of this town, because unfortunately the shit is real, man. You know?
Yeah. Can I rewind a little bit? Cause I'm curious. So you ended up raising the money, but when you went back and you said you had to go downstairs and tell everybody that you didn't have the
two
money.
guys.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, cause I thought you told everybody. I was wondering how many people just like up and left right there. And then how many people, were like, fuck it, let's do this. Like, this is going to be something, because
everybody worked on that. Was there for the right reason, meaning like people were really inspired by it. They could tell that I was passionate. They could read it on the page. I was passionate. So, and everybody kind of needed it for themselves. Like Mike Bonvillain wanted to be a cinematographer. This was his opportunity. The young producers who hadn't produced anything, this was their opportunity. Mira Savino, who I had met sneaking into the Goodfellas premiere, Paul Savino's daughter. At the time, she was an aspiring actress. She was helping us just do the casting on it. And she wanted to play the role. And my mother looked at me one day and she was like, what's wrong with you? She's awesome. And at that time, I probably had a hard time seeing her in that role, because I had known her as a friend, and we wound up doing it. And 2 years later, she had an Academy Award. Woody Allen saw her amongst friends. Yeah. Redford obviously saw her because it was at Sundance. She went from Quiz Show to Mighty Aphrodite. So I mean, it was
crazy the tree that came from that, bro. You're right. Like how many people's careers were splintered off of that.
That's what I was saying.
Well, it was a life. It gave everybody enough of success at that time to pursue a dream, right? Which for a lot of people is a scary fucking dream. And, I got to be honest with you, being the age I'm at, with the responsibility I'm at, if I know all this shit at 23, I'm probably at Goldman Sachs, you know what I mean?
Really?
And I'm probably doing this shit as a hobby, because it's like, it's a lot to weather, man. The business has changed so much over the years. The world's changed so much over the years. It's it doesn't offer you a tremendous amount of stability. It just doesn't. I'm not even talking about just financial. I'm talking about just even fucking mental health.
So, bro, there's two things, because there's two things there that when I first heard you talk about this, I was like, man, it's so parallel to being an entrepreneur, because I think entrepreneurialism, being an artist, being a musician, these big swings you take are lonely. They're not secure. It's peaks and valleys. Right. It's fucking feeling like shit. It's feeling like a failure. It's feeling like you've never made it. I heard you say that, which I'd like to talk about, because even as where we've gotten, I still feel like I haven't made it, even though we have in a lot of ways. It's incredibly scary and I was telling someone the other night on our staff, like, if I ever had a pulpit, let's say I get invited back to my old university, and they're like, teach these young entrepreneurs, I would really caution them, like Peter Thiel did about failure. Like, this could kill some of you. This could really fuck some of you up mentally for a long time. If you really take a big shot and it goes bad, keep your day job for as long as you can while you're building.
It's interesting, because for me, it was the opposite. So after I made Amongst Friends, even though it wasn't like a financial windfall from the movie itself, it garnered enough heat within the industry that I had a 3-picture deal at Universal. They gave me Redford's Old Bungalow. I had just a ton of deals. Every project was being thrown at me. I was attached to American Psycho. They offered me Good Will Hunting multiple times.
To direct?
And frankly, for me, the fear of failure is what ruined that opportunity and that chapter of my career. Because I was so scared to fail. Well, I was so scared to fail that, like, I just, like, if somebody else wrote a script and I read it, and because it wasn't written by me, I would panic. I would just go into panic mode. How would I shoot that? How am I directing that? You until you understand process, like, everything is daunting. So I would get so anxious that I would talk myself out of these opportunities because of fear and the overwhelming fear of failure. On the same hand, and it wasn't until years later I found a booklet of screening responses, right? And they were overwhelmingly positive, meaning from all the magazine shows, all the publications, I feel like I'm in the presence of, like, a great new voice. What an amazing job on such a small budget. All these things. But you
needed some of that validation to give you the courage.
But no, because I didn't find it till it was too late. But
right.
I was the guy that if 9 out of 10 people said positive things, I would focus on the one negative.
That's me.
So it was purely brain function, and I credit, obviously.
It's like a high achiever thing. Right? To be that, it's like every high achiever has that. So is it true then that Billy...
I don't know, but I needed therapy. Like, therapy is what got me to get past that and get into process. So all I'm saying about the failure thing is, if I could do it again, I would 100% embrace failure. Everybody failed on their second movies. It's called the sophomore jinx. In order to avoid the sophomore jinx, I didn't make another fucking movie. It was crazy.
So was Billy...
And then
was Billy Walsh really based off of you?
Right. Billy Walsh was born out of this kind of thinking that I had when I was in my 20s. Now, by the time I got into position where I could go shoot movies, I was so fucking busy with the shows, I wasn't really available to do it. So, now I'm in a good place. I'm
good
TV
for me,
projects
because
and film projects.
Entourage, I watch it twice a year all the way through. And Ballers. Bro, you said something really cool, though. Number one, we've had some heavy world championship fighters on this podcast. I've always told everyone on my staff that being vulnerable and therapy and those things are some of the most courageous things you can do as a man. One of the other things you said, though, that I would love to understand is, number one, learn to embrace your failures. But two, you said something interesting about until you understand process.
Everything is process, man. Everything that I do in terms of being a creative person for a living is process. It's not going to do itself. I mean, the project's not going to just come to fruition on its own.
If you were to define process, what does that mean?
If I had to define what?
The process, like, what does that mean?
I'd say one foot in front of the other through all the obstacles that stand in front of you, because that's what it is. But it's the same thing for any fighter. Look at how many guys evolve. You just evolve until you've maxed. You've reached peak potential. You age out, right? Your jaw goes, whatever it is. And then you come down the other side. At some point, I'm not going to be as sharp. I'm not going to be as creative. I'm not going to be as hungry and ambitious, you know? Right now, I still am. So I think that I have potential to do great work. But at some point, that won't be there, right? You know, I hope it's when I'm like an old man, you know what I mean?
When you get your black belt at 90,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
So, bro, would you say, because like there's a new book I'm reading that sort of changed my paradigm of success, that you have to remember compounding isn't just in money, it's in career too. So to encapsulate that, would you say one foot in front of the other, embrace failure and give yourself time?
Yeah, I think embracing failure is a whole separate beast, because you just can't let it stop you. Everybody fails, man. It's like I said, if I take out 10 pitches right now, I might fail. Look, I might fail on all 10. I might fail on 5. You don't know numbers, but like they're not all going to be winners. Not everything you do is going to be a fucking home run, but you learn from the failure. So that's a separate thing. In terms of the process, it's like, you know, look at the 30,000 foot view. Right? Like when I look at a story, I'm up here, get further into it. Now I'm more into characters. Now I'm more into the moments. Let me go back and fix this. You know, it's just, it takes a long time to develop material that's good. It just does. And it goes through a lot of rewrites, and it goes through a lot of conversations with a lot of collaborators. And hopefully in the end, you wind up with something great. You know, sometimes things are over collaborated and they suck because not everybody has the same vision. So like there's an art form to finding people who are all rowing in the same direction too. You know?
What were you going to say, Chris?
I was going to say, it sounds like it takes a lot of patience, because you were saying like start from the top, look in, you know, you might have to go back.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have that patience they think, you know, it's good, let's push it. And you're probably more of a perfectionist, right? Like it's good, but it's not great. Yeah. So then I go back, and that just takes what I would think is a ton of patience.
I think that, I agree with you. I mean, I think it is. I think, again, a lot of that comes with age and experience. You know, the things I've taken flyers on, particularly in the last few years, have all turned out to be a wash for me. They were the things that I go like, I had no business doing it, you know, or no business doing those things with the people I was doing them with. Because you go, fuck it, let's just do it. And then, you know, you find out this partner's not paying the bills, right? Or you get involved in, I got involved in a tech company, and turns out the guys I was involved on their board. And it wasn't just me, it was successful hip hop cats. And then, you know, somebody sends me a Department of Justice bulletin that they absconded $3 million in, you know, PPP and $2 million in idle loans. And you just go like, you know, there should have been greater due diligence on my part, and the understanding that we lived in fucked up times and people are doing fucked up things. And, you know, be more patient, choose the people I collaborate with better. And mostly, ultimately, you know, when you're in your 50s, it's the amount of time you want to throw at things, right? I mean, it's like, I don't have all the time I had when I was like 25, right? And I got a 6-year-old son I'm trying to raise. It's, you know, that's my priority. That's where I want to put my energy there. My career, working with people that I want to work with that I know are solid people. So,
and that's
it's like knowing your strike zone.
Patience and intelligence. You know what I mean?
It's like knowing your strike zone.
And good judgment.
But that took
exactly.
That took years, right? Because now you're at a point in your career where you can pick and choose who you work with. But
hindsight too.
Yeah, and you're talking about like earlier in the grind, when you're trying to get in, you kind of have to take what you can get, right? And then as you move forward and where you are now projects probably come to you.
You're trying to push out volume and like ideas in you because you're trying to make it.
Any opportunity you get, but now you're probably at
like Chris has fought in a shopping mall once. I feel like you fought in some weird
clubs,
bars.
You
fought in some weird fucking spots in the beginning.
Yeah.
Did you fight in a strip club?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No, you didn't. In a strip club while people were stripping.
They used to have shows all the time.
That's awesome.
But
that's awesome.
I imagine you're at a point in your career now where the projects come to you, right?
It's interesting. I feel like if you really want to do great material until like on occasion, some great things have come across like my desk over the last few years, things I'm involved in that I didn't write, that I'm a producer on, or I'll supervise, I'm going to be an EP on. But for the most part, I really feel like you got to be in the trenches. You got to generate it yourself. So I mean, I think that like I have more faith in me developing, me bringing in the partners, or on occasion, like I'm doing a project, a feature with Team Wahlberg, Steve Levinson, and Mark Wahlberg will star in it. But obviously, that comes to me via that team and the fact that we've had prior partnerships in shows, and we've worked together on shows. So. But I think that's where you go, oh, I'm in good hands. I'm in good company. These guys know what they're doing. So,
yeah.
But
build that relationship.
What was the first part of what you were saying, Chris? You were saying that, so at the beginning of your career, sure, when nobody's watching, you can do anything. You know what I mean? And just get your feet wet. Like, it's almost like, I think it's when you have a track record. Like, perfect example, like people send me independent movies, right? And you go, all right, this could be cool. This could work. This could not. But I'm in the place where I look at it and I go, is somebody going to make this that's really going to push it in terms of marketing? Because if it gets no eyeballs and it doesn't generate, what does that do when I want to go make the $20 million movie? So I mean, again, I could be wrong in thinking that, because you can just make a great movie and then makes the $20 million movie easier. But I'm still a little bit. I try to look at these things from all sides. But I'll also consult people that are a lot smarter than me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I don't have every answer. I just know from my own personal experiences. But there are people in my life that have a lot of really great perspective and understanding of the business we're in. So.
So is it true you have the rights to the Iceberg Slim story?
Yeah.
I've read his book.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. No, I'm actually putting that together right now. So I had that set up at HBO, I want to say 5-6 years ago.
And it'd be a feature in your mind?
So the one at HBO, that version that we were working on was Alan Hughes directing, and it was Idris Elba playing Robert Bex, aka Iceberg Slim, older, with Michael B. Jordan playing him younger. And we were going to do it like Godfather 1 and 2 in a 4-part limited series. That didn't go because HBO at the time was developing The Deuce, and the president of HBO didn't want to do 2 projects with pimps. But
our pimp slate is full.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly. We're all maxed out on pimping.
Can never have enough pimps.
So we have an amazing, I can't announce what it is yet, but we have an amazing young filmmaker who's attached to the book now, and we're starting to put it together, and we're going to try to get some great, cast elements attached and find the home for it and go make it. It's an important story. First off, it's an incredible piece of literature.
Yeah. What do you love about that book that you think is so impactful?
So I read it when I want to say I was 19. And I'm not a big reader. There's only a handful of books that I read without having to read them, and that was one of them. So a job opportunity came up after Amongst Friends for me to adapt it. So I did that, and I think the more I did it, the more I fell in love with, a couple elements of one. He was the ultimate underdog, right? He was a guy who really had no opportunity, and the one shred of opportunity to be on a good path in life was taken from him. Without getting too far into it, it was his mom and her relationship. And watching how he had to navigate the streets in a time when, again, this is the birth of the American ghetto, when Black people didn't have so much opportunity, and the nature of survival and what he did, and how he came to his redemption and how he made peace. But more importantly, it's the language. It's lyrical, it's poetic. It's an incredible story it's an incredible tale of redemption. But it says a lot too about the state of our world, And I think that people, when they look at it, from outside of the book, it's scary to them to picture making it. But the reality is he was a sexual abuse victim. You know, and it's an
Hey, Rob, you
important
mean
tale
scary
for how this
like
country's going.
you mean scary like
Well, just
you go to
no,
make it
scary in Hollywood because of, you know,
the content basically like
yeah, because we live in such a, you know, socially sensitive environment now where people look at anything that pushes the envelope just a little too far and it becomes like that, you
Yeah.
know? So I think, you know, and again, you know, I think that's predominantly a Hollywood thing. You know, I watch news from around the rest of the country and it doesn't seem quite as sensitive, but you know, we're kind of in that like cauldron of sensitivity. So, so I understand why it's material that some people could get a little bit, you know,
because there's some gruesome stories in the book. I
concerned
mean,
about.
like the
Right.
yeah.
Right. Sweet Jones with the wire hangers. And
Yeah.
it's a pretty intense tale, you know? So, but I think there are lessons in humanity to be mined from it. So,
'cause
but
you said-
we'll see what our filmmaker brings. She's going to write it. She's going to write it. She's going to direct it.
That's bold of her. Yeah, that's a tough subject for women too, right? I mean,
well, I think it needs to be honest with you, and this isn't me playing the Hollywood game. I actually think that a woman is going to look at it better from both sides, whereas a man's going to look at it specifically from the pimp side. A woman's looking at the full dynamic of the game, right? How that yin and yang of how those two pieces come together of the prostitute and of the pimp. So, and she made a early movie that was really, really spectacular that I watched. So I think
you said
I think like she'd be great for this.
You love character studies too, where people come from darkness into light, and that's definitely one of those stories of this guy who obviously is a pimp and then becomes arguably, I mean. This is going to be bold. No, it is, because you have like for that world to become that big of an author, to become that big of a literary giant, which he did, right?
Right.
I mean, you could argue he changed literature in a lot of ways, from Henry Miller to Hemingway to Mark Twain to Iceberg Slim. I mean, no, it's true though. The guy he changed the game a bit, and to be where he came from the streets, to have that tough of a life, to then become such a voice is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. Well, he was Holloway House represented both Robert Beck and Donald Goines. Donald Goines, I believe, was a little more along the lines of black exploitation, like cinematically, you know. But I feel like, and Beck, I haven't read like Trick Baby and Mama Black Widow and some of his other books, but the two books I did read, which were Pimp and The Naked Soul of Iceberg Slim, were both incredibly autobiographical memoirs, right? That really did get inside his thoughts, you know? And I think the best writers, and particularly if they're writing, you know, their narrative is personal to them. I think self-awareness is everything, you know? A buddy of mine, I'm going to plug his book. A buddy of mine, Riley Perez, wrote a book called What is Real? And it's about the first 18 months of his incarceration. And I was blown away, man. I read his book and I was just blown away by the level of detail that he goes into for the experience of the first 18 months on a 10-year stint, right? So
what was his name again?
It was Riley Perez.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's called What is Real. He was like, I mean, I don't want to tell too much about his story, but he was actually the person who, and I don't want to get the charges wrong, but he was convicted of, I believe, kidnapping Joe Francis, the Girls Gone Wild guy, with that whole extortion case.
Oh shit!
It was a pretty big news thing. Not exactly the ultimate victim, Joe Francis.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? But the story of that, which isn't in the book, is fucking bananas. But it's really just about finding your place in prison, finding the people that you're with. But mostly it was just anybody who could take you somewhere and give you that experience in a way that's a piece of themselves and conveyed in a way that's like
real,
unfiltered, you know,
because when you say self-reflection and then being that vulnerable is tough. I mean, it's tough to be that self-reflective, to have the emotional intelligence to do it. And then to really put stuff to the paper that's
write a biography
without
on
self-awareness,
yourself.
we have without self-awareness, we have zero evolution.
Yeah.
True.
I have people
That's
in
what
my
mushrooms
life,
are for, huh? Mushrooms
what
are for mushrooms, self-actualization.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I've been like, so it's funny. I quit drinking like over 3 years ago. I don't do any drugs, but I've been over the last 6 months, low-key microdosing shrooms. And as we've talked about this, it's now, again, I don't think I don't know the effect of it, meaning like long-term and creating, for me personally, new neural pathways, but they bring up the mood, man. You know what I mean? It's definitely a different frame of reference in your mind. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are using a lot of different hallucinogenics in a therapeutic way. They have clinics here now that are doing psilocybin and ketamine, and obviously we all know about ayahuasca, you know, DMT and ibogaine and everything else that they're using. But I think looking at some of these plant-based kind of medicines in a therapeutic way, it's fucking important, man. I mean, look at us, man. We're like a country built on pharmaceuticals. I speak to people who aren't from the States that are here. They can't even fucking believe that every other commercial is like they're pumping some drug. You know, it's like, it's insane. Every drug causes nervousness and diarrhea. I'm like, Jesus, like pull out the ingredients, man.
Side effects
what are they putting in there, man?
Side effects are seizures on some of the boner pills, and guys are like, how long is the seizure going to last? How long is the seizure going to last?
Well, I have the seizure with a boner because that matters.
Is that really true though? Which pill?
Oh, I don't know.
Not
Every time you see one of those
Viagra.
commercials, it's like this will cause seizures, in some cases death, and it's while they're saying that it's like this family at a park having the best time.
Of course. They're having a great time.
Your girl might like it.
So, bro, in sort of closing, because we want to be really respectful of your time, I wrote a film a long time ago. So I used to do stand-up, and Matty was in the film industry as well. And I wrote a film, and when I got into the writing process, I started reading. I wrote Stephen King's book on writing. You know, you hear Hemingway say, if you want to learn how to write, stare at a blank page until your eyes bleed. I think
that's
writing,
hysterical, man.
I think writing is one of the toughest jobs on earth. I know it's incredible.
It's the worst.
It's crazy, right? Like
the worst.
So your process for writing, because what I found, so I read this book too on productivity, and this guy studied like 100 of the world's greatest artists, and he found that they always had a process, and that process was, for Hemingway, was, you know, when he woke up from wherever he was blacked out, he wrote from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then the rest of his day was free. Right. A lot of these guys had a block of time, and when I first started writing comedy and even that film, I found it really hard. It was like the creative process. I felt like I had to be in a certain place. I felt like I had to do a certain thing or smoke a certain drug or whatever to be creative. No, seriously, like when you first become creative or try to be creative, it's tough. Yeah. It's like in business when you're sitting there trying to find a solution.
By the way, I don't think that's crazy, man. I mean, a lot of people, you know, rely on different experiences. A lot of people smoke weed before they write. Like, I don't think that's, I mean, for me, I'm not a disciplined writer. I write when I feel like there's a gun to my head and it's got to get done. For me to sit down and stare at a blank page, it's a certain death. And frankly, it's just the least productive I'll be. The best way for me to work, which is why I gravitate toward television, I like being in a room. I like kicking around ideas with people. I like getting it up on a board, knowing what I'm going to write. And then I could go write a whole fucking Entourage script in a day, 2 days. It was easy for me. And even now on the feature I'm writing, I broke the feature with Steve Levinson. And is he motioning me something?
No, something changed on the microphone, Matty.
All right, I just saw this.
Keep going.
I thought I was getting a standby. I was like, standby for what, man? So no, but like the movie I'm writing with, like I said, Team Wahlberg, like I broke it with Steve Levinson. If I don't have that give and take where I can have a conversation and then figure out what it is, beginning, middle, and end, and understand the story, it's a disaster for me. So I'm better in a collaborative scenario. I have no problem sitting down and grinding. I love to work, but like me getting up at 7 a.m. and I'm gonna stare at that blank page. Fuck that, man. It's just not. Yeah. I'm not a writer like that. Like it's just not. It's just not what I do. So, but I like to work. So it's kind of like it might sound a little weird. It's just that I know my strengths versus my weaknesses. I also know writing about shit I know. And worlds I live in, or at least worlds I have a perspective on, I'm going to be significantly more successful at that than if I'm like, hey, I want to write this revolutionary war tale. I'm like, I'm not a historian. A lot of people can write that. It's just,
All right, real quick, I want to tell you about something that I absolutely love, and that is FitSoda. Soda's great. Everyone loves to drink it, but it's not good for you. It's going to make you fat. It's going to get you obese. It's going to rot your teeth and cause all kinds of health problems along the way. FitSoda gives you all the pleasure of that beautiful, sparkling, tasty drink, but without all the negative side effects. FitSoda has 0 calories. It's also a hydration drink. It is loaded with branch chain amino acids for recovery and electrolytes for hydration. Comes in 4 amazing flavors. You got the orange cream, you got the root beer float, you got the cherry cola, and the sparkling citrus. By the way, guilt-free soda, 0 calories. Stick a little vodka in there. You got a delicious cocktail. It's a great mixer. I'm telling you, this stuff is fantastic. Stop drinking soda right now. Stop adding to that waistline. Stop rotting your teeth and causing all the internal problems that soda does cause. FitSoda #1 is absolutely delicious, and it's good for you.
So no real structured process for writing, but it's just getting around with the friends. I see a lot of times on your Instagram you post with other writers at the house. Y'all are smoking cigars, which I want to get invited to. And we do have a custom FitSoda cigar box for Rob. We do.
Oh, awesome.
We got it made. Yeah, we got it made.
Appreciate it,
and
bro.
do you still have your own line with Davidoff?
So the line got kind of fucking murdered by that whole FDA, premium tobacco oversight. I think it was probably like 6-7 years ago already. The FDA wanted to regulate vaping, which obviously they were probably like, lobbied to do by other big tobacco, right? Because big tobacco is losing a lion's share of the market to the vaping industry. So they got into regulating vaping. And when they did that, they decided to regulate premium tobacco, cigars and pipe tobacco, which hadn't been regulated ever. And cigars are like 500 years old. So my deal was with Davidoff. They had licensed my trademark. They had built BG Meyer, my brand. We were only like 2 years into it. It was fairly successful, but it was building. It's not easy to do that because the cigar business is one of these old school businesses where it's really about going around shop to shop, shaking hands, smoking with people, getting to know people, which is something I had no problem doing and would love to do. But at the time I was doing Ballers, so my schedule was just super tight and I couldn't really service it as much. And when the regulations came down, they wanted to charge like $40,000 per SKU to register for any brand that came after 2007, which mine did. And since I own the trademark, Davidoff wanted me to pay it. Obviously, I was not spending $500,000 to register a bunch of fucking cigars. I was like, yo, I got in this shit to pull money, not to like put money into it. And so we went, after that final year, we had a 3-year deal. We went into like a 3-year sell-through period because we had a ton of inventory. And then somehow that inventory kept like rolling for an extra couple of years. And then the brand was just over. But I do entertain in conversation relaunching with some older SKUs that are grandfathered in pre-2007. So basically I would find blends that haven't been used, in a long time that are really good and use those. But to date, like I'm not deep into it. But I've had a lot of great conversations with a lot of great companies over the years. I mean, obviously I smoke cigars, you smoke cigars. Like I'm ready to go right now.
We're on our way after. We're going to go hit Mitts and then go to, we have a room at the Churchill, which is like a hotel that was built in the 1800s. And it has one of those just rooms where you feel like old white guys made laws. You know
Looks
what I mean? It's
like
like,
old
yeah.
It's hysterical.
So did you ever smoke with The Rock? Does he smoke?
No, he hates fucking smoke, actually. Dwayne actually, they were like, yo, he does not like any smoke. So no, I never smoked with Dwayne. But BG Meyer was the main cigar that we used on Ballers. Like, I'd make sure they were stocked, and the character Jason Andelotti, played by my boy Troy, he'd smoke them. We had Andy Garcia on, and I was like, they were shooting in Miami. I was in LA writing this Hell's Angel movie. So I wasn't on set, and I'm like, yo, is Andy smoking my cigars? Andy smoking my cigars? And I knew Garcia, who's Cuban. I know he has a real relationship with the Fuente family. And they were like, nah, he's not smoking your cigars. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, well, take the labels off. Sneak his labels off, you know?
Yeah.
But no, man, I'd love to smoke with Dwayne, but he's not a smoker,
Was he easy to work with? You said he was. You never made him do it.
He was the worst, bro. The worst. Nah, let me give you a sound bite.
Yeah,
I was like, this is going somewhere.
No, I swear to God, man. I swear to God, like, I don't talk to Dwayne. I haven't seen Dwayne since we rapped. I love Dwayne, man. Dwayne is a fucking great dude, man, and he's really authentically what you see. He's is that him on the wall?
Yeah.
Yo, he's dope, man. I had a lot of laughs with him. He's shockingly talented, meaning like he could show up, put him on marks, he finds his place, knows his shit, rips through it, like he fucking always delivers.
Always ready.
But he was a great, bro. That was I loved the Entourage. I loved How to Make It in America, both for different reasons. But I fucking love Ballers. And Ballers for me, and I think the reason I've thought about it, why I loved it so much, it was just the most complete experience, right? Because I was writing the bulk along with Steve. I was directing and EPing. So I was getting to do all the jobs. I was really getting to work with actors. I was really getting to, like, when you're writing the scripts and Dwayne's doing scenes, me and Levinson are behind the monitors like, yo, DJ, try this. Yo, DJ, try that. And then you look at the rest of the cast, and it's like just one great guy between Caudry and John David Washington and Russell Brand. And just the cast was fucking lit, man. Richard Schiff, Steven Weber, and the women, all the women were amazing. So I always tend to go to the guy actors. I don't know why I do that. But we had the best cast, and I love that experience, man. And Dwayne was the leader of it, so that show is built on Dwayne and, and Pete Berg and Lev and Mark. And
are you tight with Berg? I've always been a fan of his work.
I love Pete Berg. I don't spend a lot of time with him, but we like each other. He's he's definitely a guy I've looked up to over the years.
Yeah, he still feels like he's one of those man's men in that industry still. Like
listen, Pete makes he's an incredible filmmaker. He's a total man's man, but he's a super advocate for men in service, men and women who serve this country, whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in the military. My dad was 101st Airborne. I have a lot of respect for the people that serve this country, and always full of gratitude to meet them. Jay Glazer too, who was on our show. Jay owns the gym Unbreakable, and he has this MVP program for the veterans to go in and train. And I think that's super important. But the guys like Pete Berg, Joe Carnahan, like those filmmakers were like the guys that like I look at and I'm like, yo, they make good shit.
Yeah.
Like they make cool shit. They make like guys shit. But I think the importance is to make guys shit that women also respond to, you know what I mean?
Well, Pete's first film, Aspen Extreme. I mean, that was for women too. That movie was
him but he was an actor.
I'm just saying, that was when I first became a fan of Pete Berg.
His first movie was Very Bad Things, which was a bachelor party gone awry, right? So I don't know that was for women, but he's an incredible filmmaker, man. Just makes incredible stuff. So I mean. For me, with any good blessing, I just get to work with good people, and I continue to grow and evolve and learn from them. So
yeah, that's dope.
Well,
bro,
until they throw me out.
Yeah, I know you have somewhere to be, so we'll be respectful of the time. So good talking to you. I'm so grateful you came on.
You too, guys.
Thank you so much, bro.
It's great seeing you on the Zoom here, and Chris and Matt. It's great to meet you guys. And,
Yeah,
you know,
nice to meet you.
I'll keep drinking my Koios. I don't know if your product sponsor your show, but you know, all my friends are crazy freaks about the FitSoda and the Koios. So
We'll send you a new care
just
package,
so you know
man.
I got a request from my buddy. He wants more of the cherry. I think he said the cherry. I don't know if it was the FitSoda or the Koios, but
Copy
I mean,
that.
I blow through them here, man. It's pretty solid, bro. It's pretty solid.
We'll send some out.
Yeah.
ASAP.
It was great joining you guys, and invite me back some other time, man. And if I get to Colorado, which is where you guys are, right?
Yeah. Well, I missed you
I
last
get
time in
that.
LA, but yeah, when you're out here, we'd love to host you.
Hell yeah, man. You know, hell yeah.
Let's
Maybe
get
I'll
it.
move there and just pull up a fourth fucking
Let's
microphone.
go, bro. Let's go.
You're in anytime you want.
And park myself there,
Let's
man.
do it.
So,
All right, bro. Well, I
gentlemen,
appreciate
thank
you
man.
so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Have a good Friday,
Of course,
man.
brother.
See you,
I'll
Rob.
speak to you soon, man. Take it easy,
See you,
guys.
bro.